That's a really good question. A lot of people wonder about it. It hits on something deep, something that feels like a puzzle when you first think about it. If God already knows everything, every single thing we're going to do, every choice we'll make, every thought we'll have, then why does he put us through hard times? Why does he let us struggle? What's the point of a test if he already knows the answer? It's a fair question. It makes sense to ask it, and it's not disrespectful to wonder. It's just being honest about something that seems a bit confusing on the surface. We think of tests in school, right? The teacher gives a test to see what you've learned. The teacher doesn't already know what's in your head, but God does. So, what's going on? First, let's talk about what God knows everything really means. It's called omniscience. God knows the past, the present, and the future. He knows every potential path, every possible outcome. He knows your heart completely, right now and always. He knew you before you were born. He knows what you're going to do 5 minutes from now, 5 years from now, even if you don't. He knows your strengths, your weaknesses, your deepest desires, your hidden fears. He knows your faith, and he knows when it's going to waver. He knows all of it. And that's a lot to wrap our heads around. So, if that's true, why the tests? It's important to understand that when God tests us, it's not because he needs new information. He's not sitting there taking notes, wondering what you're going to do next. Well, he already knows. The test isn't for him, it's for us, and sometimes it's for others around us too. Think about it like this. You might not know your own strength until you have to use it. You might say you believe in something strongly, but do you really know how strong that belief is until it's challenged? We often don't truly understand ourselves until we're put in a tough spot, and that's a big part of what God's tests are about. One main reason God allows tests is to show us what's in our own hearts. We think we know ourselves. We think we know how we'd react in certain situations, but often we're surprised. We might think we're very patient, and then a really annoying situation comes up and we lose our temper. We might think our faith is strong, and then a major crisis hits, and we feel totally overwhelmed and wonder where God is. These situations, these tests, they reveal the truth about us to ourselves. They show us where our faith truly lies, where our weaknesses are, where we still need to grow. And that knowledge, while sometimes uncomfortable, is really important for our spiritual journey. And then there's the idea of growth. A muscle doesn't get stronger if it's never used. It needs resistance. It needs to be worked. Our faith, our character, our spiritual muscles, they work the same way. When things are always easy, we don't really grow much. We stay comfortable. But when we face challenges, when we have to rely on God in a way we haven't before, that's when real growth happens. We learn to trust him more deeply. We learn patience. We learn perseverance. We develop endurance. These are qualities that are formed in the fires of testing, not in the comfort of ease. The Bible talks about this a lot. It compares our faith to gold being refined by fire. The gold is precious, but it has impurities. To get rid of those impurities, you have to heat it up really hot. The fire doesn't destroy the gold, it makes it purer, more valuable. And that's what tests can do for us. They burn away the things that aren't really important, the things that hold us back, and they leave behind a purer, stronger faith. God isn't trying to hurt us, he's trying to refine us, to make us more like him. But tests are not just for our own growth. Sometimes they're about drawing us closer to God. When life is smooth, we might forget about God a bit. We get busy, we get distracted, we think we can handle everything ourselves. But when trouble hits, when we're truly desperate, who do we call out to? Often, it's God. In those moments of weakness, we learn to lean on him completely. We realize how much we need him. And that deep reliance, that crying out to him from a place of need, can create an incredible intimacy with God that we might not find otherwise. It builds a deeper relationship, one based on true dependence and trust. And sometimes our tests are a witness to others. How we handle hard times can speak volumes to the people around us who don't know God, or who are struggling in their own faith. When they see us going through something really tough, but still trusting God, still holding on to hope, still showing peace, that can be a powerful testimony. It shows them that our faith isn't just words, it's real. It shows them that God is real, and that he can sustain us even in the darkest valleys. Our example can plant seeds of faith in others, or strengthen the faith of those who are wavering. It's also important to make a distinction between God testing us and God tempting us. The Bible is very clear that God does not tempt anyone to do evil. James chapter 1, verse 13 says, "Let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he himself tempt anyone." Temptation comes from our own sinful desires or from the enemy. Its goal is to make us fall, to lead us into sin. But God's tests have a good purpose. Their goal is to strengthen us, to purify us, to help us grow. Sometimes the same situation can be both a test and a temptation. For example, a financial crisis can be a test from God to see if you will trust Him to provide, or if you will worry and fall into despair. But it can also be a temptation from the enemy to compromise your ethics to make money or to blame God for your troubles. Our response to the situation determines whether it becomes a growth opportunity or a spiritual downfall. God allows the situation for our good, but we have free will to choose how we respond. Let's look at some examples from the Bible. Think about Abraham. God told him to sacrifice his son Isaac. God knew Abraham's heart. He knew Abraham would obey, but Abraham didn't fully know his own obedience until that moment. He had to go through the emotional agony, the journey, the preparation. He had to lift the knife. And in that ultimate act of faith, he not only proved his love and obedience to God, but God provided a substitute confirming his faithfulness. Abraham learned something profound about himself and about God's character that day. And it became a story that has inspired faith for thousands of years. It was a test, not for God's information, but for Abraham's revelation and for God's glory. Or consider Job. Job was a righteous man. God himself pointed him out to Satan as blameless. God knew Job's integrity, but Satan challenged it, saying Job only served God because of the blessings. So God allowed Satan to test Job, to strip him of everything, his wealth, his children, his health. Did God need to see if Job would curse him? No. God knew Job's heart. But the test proved Job's steadfastness to Satan and to all of heaven. And for Job, going through that unimaginable suffering, he came out with a deeper understanding of God, saying, I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. He grew. His understanding of God went from head knowledge to deep, personal experience. The Israelites in the wilderness are another powerful example. God led them out of Egypt, performing miracles. But then he led them into the desert for 40 years. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 2 says, And you shall remember that the Lord your God led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble you and test you, to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. Again, to know what was in your heart doesn't mean God didn't know. It means to reveal it to them. They needed to see their own stubbornness, their grumbling, their lack of faith, but also God's constant provision and patience. It was a time of humbling and training, preparing them for the promised land. They learned that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Even Jesus was tested. Before he began his public ministry, he was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He was hungry, vulnerable, and Satan attacked him with temptations that challenged his identity and his trust in God. Jesus, being fully God, did not need to be tested for God to know his faithfulness, but for us it showed his perfect obedience, his reliance on God's word, and his victory over temptation. It prepared him for his ministry and set an example for us. There's a short but really insightful verse in John 6. Jesus saw a large crowd and asked Philip, Where shall we buy bread, that these may eat? And the Bible adds, This he said to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. Jesus knew exactly how he was going to feed the 5,000. He didn't need Philip's advice or a shopping list, but he asked Philip to test him. He wanted Philip to think about the problem, to realize the human impossibility of it, so that when Jesus performed the miracle, Philip and the other disciples would see God's power even more clearly. It was a learning experience for Philip, not an information gathering exercise for Jesus. So, when we talk about God testing us, we're talking about a process that, from God's perfect perspective, serves multiple good purposes for us. It shows us our own hearts. It strengthens our faith and character. It draws us closer to him. It gives us testimony for others. It prepares us for what's ahead. And all of this comes from a place of immense love. God isn't a cruel taskmaster who enjoys watching us suffer. He's a loving father. Just like a good parent might let their child struggle a bit with a puzzle or a bike to teach them resilience and skill, knowing they'll eventually get it, God allows us to face challenges. He knows the end goal. He sees the bigger picture. He knows the beautiful person we can become through the process. His tests are always meant for our ultimate good, even when they feel incredibly difficult. They are never meant to harm us, but to build us up. His knowledge of everything doesn't mean our choices aren't real. We still have free will. God knows what we will choose, but he doesn't force us to choose it. Tests provide the opportunity for us to freely choose him, to trust him, to obey him even when it's hard. And those choices made freely in the face of difficulty are incredibly meaningful to God and incredibly transformative for us. So, the paradox, if God knows everything, why does he test us, begins to resolve when we shift our perspective. It's not about God gaining information, it's about us gaining revelation about ourselves, about our faith, about God's faithfulness. It's about us growing, being refined, becoming more like Christ. It's about our relationship with him deepening. And it's about God's glory being revealed through our perseverance and trust. When a test comes, it's natural to feel fear, frustration, or even anger, but understanding its purpose can change our whole approach. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? We can start to ask, God, what are you trying to teach me through this? What do you want to reveal to me about myself? How can I grow closer to you in this? It's not easy, and it definitely doesn't make the pain go away instantly, but it gives meaning to the struggle. And it reminds us that God is always with us in the test. He doesn't just throw us into the deep end and walk away. He promises to never leave us or forsake us. He gives us the strength to endure. He provides a way out, or a way through. He carries us when we can't walk. He comforts us when we're hurting. His love doesn't vanish just because the road gets rocky. In fact, his presence often feels strongest when we are weakest and most dependent on him. So, while God knows everything, his tests are a profound act of love and wisdom. They are part of his perfect plan to conform us to the image of his Son. They are his way of building us up, not tearing us down. They are a means to reveal his faithfulness and power both to us and through us. And in the end, when we look back on the trials we faced, we often see how those were the very seasons that shaped us the most, that brought us closest to him, and that showed us who we truly are and who he truly is. It's a journey of discovery, growth, and deeper relationship, all orchestrated by a God who knows everything and loves us completely.